of a different plan than originally intended, but you know what? Screw it. Let's finish this. Let's finish off this fourth and final season of Castlevania right here, right now. Plus give you my overall series review on top of that, so prepare yourself for a long video. What's up, what's happening, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Mr. Station, which is for anything and everything animation, including a Belmont trying to defend his family name, as well as TV and movies. I'm your host, Jackson Small. Welcome back to Castlevania-Thon 2. Welcome to the end of our first chapter of Castlevania-Thon Act 2, which is finishing off the original Castlevania series by talking about Season 4. And we have a whopping 3 episodes to talk about, and all 3 of them have a lot of very substantial things happening. And I'm happy to say that all 3 of them are actually really good. One of them's even spectacular, I dare say. However, that doesn't mean that's perfect. There are still some problems, and there is still some nagging things. So, let's not waste any more time. Talk about these 3 episodes. Starting off with Season 4, Episode 8, Death Magic. We're going to go full deep dive for this one since this is the end of the entire series. This is literally all 3 of these episodes is the final battle. There's no alternate storylines or any of that stuff. Like, the Carmella stuff, done. Isaac stuff, done. Now we are just focused on the final battle against who turns out to be Death. We'll talk all about it. Anyway, we start in Targovishta, where night creatures are led into the underground court by Ratko. The civilians inside are brutally murdered by his forces while Varney trails behind. Not even members of Zamfir's guard are any match for Ratko. Before the vampire warrior can claim any more lives, though, Trevor confronts him directly. Excited for the challenge, Ratko tells Trevor he's been itching for a proper kill. Trevor asks if Ratko meant a proper fight, but the vampire denies this and claims that he will win. That's what they all say. Sypha and Zamfir back up Trevor against the night creatures, allowing Trevor to focus on the blade-wielding. Blade-wielding, winged Ratko. I can't talk. I'm sorry. Sypha tries to rescue as many people as she can with her magic while everyone else is distracted. Varney goes around interrogating others for the location of the royal family's transmission mirror. Meanwhile, in Dracula's castle, or Alucard's castle, I guess I should say now, the refugees take up arms and rub them in salt. They're afraid, but they stand their ground as the horde of monsters approaches. Some lose their lives, and their souls are guided to Saint-Germain via the channel he laid out through the castle using runes. He uses the key given to him by the alchemist to begin the great work, unaware of its actual endgame. Alucard descends from his castle to the front line with his magic sword and shield in hand, straight out of Symphony of the Night. He fights alongside the humans and fights them as a united front. The archers from the castle give Alucard's team the upper hand until Dragon unleashes a fire-breathing beast upon them. Everyone is forced to retreat inside the castle. The doors are locked shut just for a moment after Greta pulls Alucard inside by his waistband, not wanting him to, pull the cliche thing of sacrificing himself. Once inside, Alucard's forces begin barricading the door while he and Greta head upstairs. They find Saint-Germain, opening a portal into the infinite corridor. He tells them to stay out of it and explains he's using the souls of Greta's people to fuel it. Alucard recognizes the death magic being used to open a portal to hell. Saint-Germain adds that he's going to pull Dracula and his wife from hell and fuse them together into what he calls a rebus. Naturally, this upsets Alucard, but the ritual has a barrier keeping him from harming Saint-Germain. Unable to stop the madman, Alucard and Greta focus on helping the others fight downstairs. The giant fire-breathing monster breaks down the door, but Alucard slits its stomach open immediately. But it doesn't die. At least not right away. Meanwhile, back in Targovishta, Sypha struggles to protect everyone hiding underground. Zamfir is fighting, but she focuses on avenging people after they're hurt or killed, rather than, protecting them while they're actually still breathing. Sypha directs her to protect the people properly, saying that she knows Zamfir can do better. Varney continues searching for the mirror while Sypha uses lightning magic to strike down the night creatures. Ratko monologues as he fights and ends up overpowering Trevor. He complains about Varney and proclaims that he finally gets on with being a true warrior. Before Ratko kills Trevor, a woman and her daughter push him. They serve to do little more than annoy him, but they get the vampire's attention. Ratko goes to strike them down, but Zamfir jumps in front of the blade, getting herself stabbed to save them. Yeah, let's give this psycho a very heroic death. That makes total sense. Zamfir holds Ratko's blade in her, rendering him unable to move for a moment. She tells him that he's just a man, and her people will outlast him. Ratko replies that he's immortal, but Trevor gets back up and uses his new cross-knife weapon to kill him. Sypha notices Zamfir's fatal wound and expresses that through the flame she used to incinerate the night creatures. Varney locates the mirror in the aftermath of the fight, which turns out to be hidden behind the thrones of the dead royals. I'll admit that was actually really clever of them. Trevor and Sypha notice the activation, but Varney slips through before they can catch him. Saint-Germain is surprised to see Varney join him, and then Trevor and Sypha realize the transmission point of the mirror is drifting and decides now or never, jumping through together without hesitation, even if they know in the back of their head they may or may not die from this. And that's death magic. It's pretty much a part 1 of a big 2 to 3 part final battle, so yeah, a good bit happens, and also a good bit doesn't happen at the same time. The whole thing is just a battle. And Saint-Germain finally revealing himself as another antagonist. As much as I hate this character, I think that's really fucking stupid. Not to mention, since most of this season's writing has been so half-assed, it comes off as forced and contrived. Like, hey, there's build-up in the past few episodes. No, there's a lot of shitty exposition. That's literally all it had. Okay, so, final thoughts for Death Magic, overall as an episode. It is a really good episode, but man, does it have some big, big problems. As I'm going to tell you all about in just a minute. Here we go. The final battle of the original series begins as Trevor, Sypha, and Alucard partake in one last struggle to halt the resurrection of Dracula, and it is a pretty good beginning to the overall ultimatum of this final season of this show. Trevor's battle with Ratko is brutal. It is an entertaining fight. The deranged psycho dies for her actions, but it's a heroic sacrifice, which, again, it's really stupid and makes no sense. The action is excellent and unrelenting in the Carnage Candy department. It wears that TVMA like a badge of honor. And the cliffhanger is genuinely exciting. Genuinely kept me on the edge of my seat. Or, I guess, on the edge of my bed, since I watch it over there on my TV on Netflix. However, Saint-Germain being one of the final villains is beyond stupid, because there was no build-up to it whatsoever. Ratko goes out like an arrogant bitch. Zamfir did not deserve a heroic sacrifice after all her terrible actions, so it comes off as hollow and forced, and the pacing once again struggles to find any kind of consistency whatsoever. So overall, very good episode, but not great and nowhere close to the heights of episode 6 of this season. You Don't Deserve My Blood continues to be the best episode of this season so far. But this one's still pretty good, mainly because it has really good action. Final verdict is a 7 out of 10. Solid episode. Let's move on to the next one, which is right here. Alright, next up, the endings. This is the penultimate episode of the entire Castlevania series. It's not the series finale, but it is the final big battle of the entire series. So needless to say, there's a lot that happens in it that we need to talk about. So let's not waste any time and begin. And this is all taking place in Dracula's castle by now. There's no more multiple scene plot jumping bullshit. As a horde of monsters invade Alucard's home, he stands and fights them back alongside Greta and all who have taken up arms beside them. The refugees try to move to safety while others fight for their lives. Alucard and Greta have their hands full with their own adversaries until Trevor and Sypha suddenly arrive to support him. Reunited at last, the trio stands together. Alucard explains the situation to them and acts as if he's not happy to see Trevor again. Together, the three of them leap onto the battlefield and change the tide of the fighting completely. Trevor uses his cross knife alongside the Morningstar whip. Pretty cool combination. Alucard and Sypha don't miss a beat alongside him, as if they haven't spent any time apart together at all. Next, they're faced with Dragon's fire-breathing monster. Sypha holds back its flames while Alucard shapeshifts into wolf form in order to flank it. Before the beast can unleash another attack, Trevor cuts off its face. And it explodes in a very glorious showing of guts and intestines. You know, what every gorehound wants to see. Next, the three fighters split up and spread out through the castle to rescue as many people as possible. With the trio presented to defend them, the refugees are kept safe from the invading vampires and night creatures. Sypha deals with the monsters at the entrance while Trevor heads through corridors into several rooms, saving anyone he can find and killing any enemy he encounters. Alucard does the same and encounters a Viking vampire with the ability to teleport to the location of his axes. Really damn cool vampire they decided to throw in at the final battle as a lackey. Like, come on. He could have so been a secondary antagonist. The vampire gives Alucard some trouble, but eventually succumbs to his magic sword before Alucard anticipates his teleportation path. Meanwhile, Saint-Germain continues to lead the souls of the damned into the portal of the Infinite Corridor. Dragon and his group of female vampires head towards Saint-Germain and Varney with the Rebus's vessel completed. And in the last episode, we were seeing them stitch this homunculi together, and it was pretty freaking horrific. Like, the thing doesn't even have a face. Dragon is unhappy to see Saint-Germain, but his group leaves to fight after completing their task. As the time approaches, Saint-Germain asks Varney to help with the final steps of the plan. Suddenly, Varney reveals that he's actually the alchemist in disguise. Plot twist. Not only that, but he's actually been Death, portraying them both. He was Death the whole time. And I guess this is all the payoff we get of that little tease from the very first episode. Outside of that, it's nothing, pretty much. Outside of that, it just pretty much comes out of nowhere. But I mean, I guess some people were able to spot it better because Varney's voiced by Malcolm McDowell. I feel really fucking stupid for not knowing that. But he's almost borderline unrecognizable in this. And he's amazing as Death, especially, I gotta say. Dracula is prepared to end all life on Earth, which will give the Death Spirit infinite power. This potential was taken away from Death when Alucard killed Dracula, but only a human can reach into hell. So Death needs Saint-Germain to return Dracula to life and fuse his soul with his wife's to drive them both mad. Death's intention is to use the maddened state of the combined souls of Dracula and Lisa inside this rebus to bring human demise on an unimaginable scale. Pretty much global extinction. He forces Saint-Germain to open the portal into hell, forcing Dracula and Lisa out of it, to their immense confusion. Greta, Alucard, Sypha, and Trevor complete their battles and round up all the survivors. While Greta finds out how many people she's lost, Alucard leads his friends upstairs to confront Saint-Germain once and for all. However, the trio is then confronted by Dragon and his team of necromancer vampires on the way there. They are incredibly skilled and provide far more of a challenge than any of the enemies they've fought before them. The trio eventually realizes that their matchup are not preferable in one-on-one scenarios. As Alucard's nearly staked, Trevor loses his normal whip, and Sypha is caught in a restrictive magic field. Trevor throws his cross knife to free Sypha, allowing her to do the same for Alucard. With his enemy out of the way, Alucard teams up with Trevor and finishes off the final two. In gloriously brutal fashion, Dragon's forced to confront them all himself and duels the trio 3-on-1. He proves to be strong, lasting quite a while against all three of the experts, but is eventually slain. Once he is slain, Trevor, Alucard, and Sypha move on to confront Saint-Germain and Death. Death keeps them out of the room with a force field, and Trevor recognizes Death immediately, whom the others initially mistake for the Grim Reaper himself. Yeah, in this universe there's a difference between Death and the Grim Reaper. It would take way too much time to explain it, so just go look up a Castlevania history thing on YouTube if you so desire. He surmises that Death was Varney acting within Dracula's court. Saint-Germain initiates the horrific ritual and traps Dracula and Lisa's souls inside the Rebus vessel, much to the horror of Alucard. Trevor breaks through the force field after multiple tries, and Saint-Germain decides to go back against his own decision. He places the portal between the Rebus and Death and signals Trevor to attack, casting holy water over the cross knife, which strikes the Rebus, which splits them back up again. And that's the last we're going to see of them for the rest of this episode. But they're not dead, let me say that right up front. The explosion from the diffusion leads Trevor and Saint-Germain outside. The cross knife breaks, and a piece of it lands in Saint-Germain's chest. He then sees his love disappear in the infinite corridor before he finally dies. Good fucking riddance. He should have died back in season 3. Like, no offense to Bill Nighy, dude's a great actor, but fuck did I hate this character. He was by far the worst thing to happen in this entire show. And even if his death is very underwhelming, he just, gets stabbed and dies. It is still really fucking cathartic after having to deal with this asshole for 2 whole seasons. So, yeah, glad he's finally fucking gone. Yes, I think, again, it's stupid that just like with Zamfir, they gave him a heroic sacrifice death, which is fucking stupid. But outside of that, glad he's finally dead and we don't have to fucking talk about him ever again. Death consumes the key he gave to Saint-Germain to open the infinite corridor, making himself far more powerful and capable of fighting. He then spits it out at Saint-Germain's side, labeling him as an idiot for defying him. And Malcolm McDowell sounds really fucking good as Death, dude. Like, straight up chills. Like, the Lich from Adventure Time? It's pretty much that, but the more adult version of that. The one that's not restricted by, ratings, censorship, bullshit. That's pretty much what Death is in the show. Trevor stands up and notices Sypha on a platform below. Knowing only one way to stop Death, Trevor prepares to sacrifice himself and says goodbye to Sypha. He professes his love for her before charging into his final battle. The last son of House Belmont decides it's time for the killers to go and for new creators to take their place. Death doesn't believe Trevor can make him die, but that doesn't stop the hunter from trying, and the two of them engage in probably the best fight in the entire show, where initially all appears hopeless for Trevor, as his tunic is torn to shreds, and he takes some very heavy damage. Oh, also another little detail here is that when Trevor is saying goodbye to Sypha, he reveals that Sypha is pregnant. Yeah, that's really a thing they decided to throw in here at the very final arc of this show, which, I mean, it makes sense. They have been kind of, blossoming their love story throughout the show. Brashly, but still blossoming. And now they finally outright profess it. Which, I'm glad they finally got to that point, even if it did take a long-ass time to get there. Trevor is nearly defeated, but he refuses to give up and uses the full power of the Morningstar Whip to stage his counterattack. After managing to injure Death, he's forced to leave the whip behind and prepares the magic knife he found in the underground courts, connecting all of its pieces until it activates. Before Death can recover from Trevor's previous attack, Trevor ends it all by stabbing Death in the face, seemingly sacrificing his life to the illuminating magic as it engulfs the entire castle. Oh, and it also burnt the shit out of his arm as he was trying to use it because of the magic. So, yeah. That's the endings. And it ends on a cliffhanger. Until the next episode. But we'll get there when we get there. But yeah, this episode is fucking amazing. Just straight up amazing. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. The penultimate episode of the entire original Castlevania series is Alucard, Trevor, and Sypha team up one last time to protect the human refugees in the castle. Varney reveals himself as Death and that he manipulated Germain to, complete this Resurrection Dracula thing the whole time, which leads to Germain's death. The plan to put Vlad and Lisa's conjoined souls into one body fails miserably, and Trevor says goodbye to his girlfriend as he heroically sacrifices himself to end Death's carnage once and for all. It's about as epic of a final battle as you could ask for, as the animation goes all out to deliver a memorable spectacle to behold, and Trevor's final moments are truly some of the show's best writing, as he gives his absolute all to save humanity from the creatures of the night in one final do-or-die battle. However, I can't say it's quite as great as Episode 6. It gets super close, trust me, it gets really, really close, it's like right there. But something about it just seems a little bit off. I feel like there was a lot more story in Episode 6 and a lot more satisfying payoffs in Episode 6 in comparison to Episode 9. But that's just my opinion. I know that there's some people that think that this is like the best episode in the entirety of Castlevania, and I'm not going to misquote you for doing that. It's at least top 5 if not top 3. It is a damn good episode. And that's why its final verdict is a strong, high, and well-deserved 10 out of 10. Literally only 1 point under Episode 6. Alright, and now with that, we only have 1 episode left and my overall series review, so let's get straight into it. I will admit this. For all this show's problems and all the bitching that I've done because of its multiple mistakes, it has probably one of the greatest endings of any animated series ever. Yes, I am not bullshitting you when I say that. It is literally one of the best finales of any animated show ever made. Which helps me forgive some of its other bullshit that's been happening all throughout this season, and especially last season. But, man, yeah, it goes out on the highest notes humanly possible and gives a very, very satisfactory conclusion, while also still leaving the door for more adventures to follow. Now, I haven't seen Nocturne yet, so I can't say if it leads directly into Nocturne, but it definitely leads into something. What do I mean by that? Well, we're going to talk all about it. Let's get through our final synopsis for the final episode of the original series of Castlevania. Season 4, Episode 10, It's Been a Strange Ride. Here we go. 2 weeks had passed since Trevor seemingly sacrificed himself to defeat Death and the rest of the night creatures. This episode begins back in Styria. As dawn approaches in the newly conquered castle, Hector uses the remaining wine in a bottle to fill 2 glasses halfway. He gives one of them to Lenore and says it's nearly her bedtime. She wants to keep drinking, but the wine supply has finally run dry. Lenore feels that everything is over and pointless. Hector believes things just changed, but apparently vampires aren't big on change. Lenore doesn't think Hector understands Carmilla at all. She believes that at the core of it all, Carmilla's chaotic plans was the vampire's virtue. Vampires' desire for everything to remain the same and for everything to be stable. Lenore states that strength can be used to create a stable environment, but Hector argues that Carmilla wanted power to rule the world. Lenore still thinks it came from the virtue, but Hector doesn't agree. He thinks that Carmilla wanted power and that Lenore wanted strength. Lenore admits that Carmilla's ambition turned into a lust for power in the end, which ruined her life and led to her death. She also adds that power doesn't do anything but consume, just like a vampire. Frustrated, Lenore shatters her wine glass and confesses that she's been living a lie, now being kept as a dangerous animal under King Isaac, as she proclaims. Hector doesn't believe Isaac will harm Lenore, but she doesn't want to sit in a cage. She apologizes for what comes next and leaves him behind. But Lenore refuses to exist this way, even with Hector, and even though she loves him. Hector attempts to stop her, but Lenore wishes to see what's so special about the sun. You see where this is going, effectively announcing her intention to take her own life. She accepts that she needs to be free and tells her he's going to write a book. Hector has found the value and the beauty of things that exist longer than himself and plans to record their mistakes. That way no one can repeat them in the future. Lenore walks outside as the sun rises and it looks out into the mountainous valley. As the sunlight gleams from between the mountains, Lenore notices Hector behind her and asks if that's all there is to the sun. Unimpressed, Lenore laughs and tells Hector he's a silly man, before turning to ash from the sun before his eyes, while still smiling at him as she dies. Hector watches with grief, unable to smile back right away, but then walks to the spot where Lenore died and returns a smile while facing the sun. Yeah, so part of me isn't happy that Lenore died. I feel like they could have maybe turned her into like a legacy character and brought her back for Nocturne, maybe as like a guide or something, or like an unwilling anti-hero. But at the same time, seeing their build-up and everything that the two of them have been through throughout this entire show, yeah, it kind of makes sense for it to end this way. It's a sad end, but I appreciate that the show continues to not pull any punches. And as for Hector, yeah, not entirely sure what happens to him at this point. It's left very ambiguous. Meanwhile, back at the Belmont's hold in Dracula's castle, Greta's refugees begin to pick up the destroyed pieces of the area and work to rebuild. Greta and Alucard would go back and forth over whose idea it was. It was Alucard's, but Greta refused to let it go. Alucard asks if it's okay for everyone to stay regardless, since he's uncomfortable with people. Greta claims that her people are used to Alucard, and he'll become more comfortable over time. He's been playing with the children, and some of them even call him father. That's just cute. Alucard doesn't have the heart to break it to them, something Greta points out is very human of him. Sypha exits the castle after being alone for 2 weeks. Alucard goes to greet her, and she asks for a horse. Sypha plans on returning to her people to help raise her and Trevor's child that she's pregnant with. Alucard congratulates her, but Sypha knows that he already knew and gave Trevor a much less congratulatory statement. Sypha prepares to leave, but Alucard asks her to stay. He reveals that a community is building around them. The refugees are not returning to Dynasty. They are staying to create a new village with schools using both the hold and the castle. Greta enters the conversation and explains that this place has all the perfect resources. She also needs Sypha to help Alucard live his life and implores her to stay and make life better for their children than it was for them. Alucard even plans to name the village Belmont. A perfect name for confusing everyone. Very Trevor. Sypha opens up to the idea of living in a place called Belmont and puts her bag down. Sypha, however, does what she does best and immediately points out several problems with the village already, as Alucard listens with a satisfied smile. She tells Alucard to keep the horses tied up as one rides down towards the castle. The three of them confront it and are surprised to find a heavily injured Trevor falling off of it. Yeah, Trevor actually survived. Part of me kind of wishes that he didn't. I feel like it would work better for story purposes if he actually did sacrifice himself and die after the end of the last episode. But whatever, I guess there's been a lot of dark, foreboding shit in this entire show, so I guess they gotta end it. I guess they gotta end it on a happy note. Trevor believes that Saint-Germain opened the Infinite Corridor just before he died to save him. I don't care if he did or didn't, I still fucking hate the character, and I'm glad that he's finally dead. Sorry, I just hate Saint-Germain. I hate the guy with a burning freaking passion. He embraces Sypha and tells her that he was most afraid of naming their child Trevor. She then calls him a rude idiot, as she always does, but Sypha tells Trevor that she loves him this time. While Sypha looks for help to treat Trevor's injuries, Alucard asks him about the dagger he used to defeat death. Trevor explains that he found the pieces of a dagger that a mad wizard created to enact a suicide pact with God. Therefore, Trevor knew that it was probably going to kill him, but he had no choice to use it. He asks what these people are doing here, and Alucard welcomes him to the new village, Treffy. Trevor notices that Alucard is weirdly happy, and he even admits it. For the first time in his life, Alucard actually has no idea what will happen next, but he believes everything will be okay. Sypha gets emotional while Trevor gets help. Greta checks on her as tears flow from her eyes. Sypha declares that they have finally won. And that is the last that we see of these characters in this show. Honestly, it's a really nice fitting send-off, though. I kind of wish, part of me wishes that Trevor died. I feel like it would have worked a little better story-wise if they kept the name of the village as Belmont, and Sypha stayed behind to help Alucard and Greta, even without Trevor there. I don't know. I feel like it would have worked a little better that way, but I guess we gotta have a happy ending, so Trevor wins. Trevor just gets to live. Whatever. However, we're not done yet. There's one more scene. Elsewhere, in some rainy, unmarked village, as I initially teased when we were reviewing the last episode, Dracula and Lisa live. They have been reincarnated and have returned from hell. Now, I know that sounds really bad, but they actually don't have bad intention this time. What do I mean by that? Let me explain. They stay at an inn together and discuss what happened. Neither of them understands how they came to be resurrected, but they're happy to get a second chance at life together. Lisa tells him to get used to calling himself Vlad from now on, and Dracula laughs while asking if this is what they really need to be talking about right now. When Lisa died, Dracula wasn't there, and then when Dracula died, he came to find her instead of usurping Satan, as Lisa had expected, because the bond these two share just goes beyond anything mortal. Dracula admits that his first sane moment since she perished was just after he died himself. While he's calm, Lisa is annoyed because she can't figure out how they came to be alive again. She asks if Dracula has a theory, but all he knows is what she does, that they woke up in a field and had to steal somebody's clothes. But they didn't kill anybody. I want to make that clear right up front. They do not kill anybody with this second chance at life. The two of them decide not to return to the castle to give their son deserved closure. Instead, Dracula wants to travel to a small place where the sun barely shines, somewhere remote where they can just live happy together. They decide to embrace their second chance and this brand new future, falling asleep together hand in hand. The series ending with the same two characters that it began with. Dracula and his love Lisa together. That's as poetic as an ending as I could possibly even try to comprehend. Yeah, like, for all this series' faults, it ended on a really strong note. Both with the final battle of the season and this entire epilogue. So, how does it all stack out in overall final thoughts, now that we're a half hour into this review? Well, it stacks out like this. A truly splendid epilogue, as each of the main characters are given both closure and satisfactory send-offs, as the original Castlevania series draws to a close after almost 3 years. Lenore chooses death over staying with Hector, Alucard helps the refugees rebuild the castle and start building a village around it, the pregnant Sypha contemplates what to do next because she thinks that Trevor's dead, and Trevor is revealed to have survived the Battle of Death thanks to the Infinite Corridor, as a very familiar horse brings him back to his girlfriend and friend after 2 days of travel. Heck, even Dracula and Lisa get a happy ending as they return from hell, decide to leave Alucard to live his own life, and make plans to travel to England. In conclusion, it's a truly superb episode to cap off this long-running series that wraps up everything up in a very nice bow, while also leaving the door open for the continuation series Nocturne to take its place. I mean, I'm not sure if it's a direct continuation or not. I still need to watch Nocturne starting tomorrow, but I'm pretty sure it's going to lead into it. So yeah, that's all I've got for this final episode of the entire Castlevania series. And despite all its problems, and despite the numerous problems that I have had with this final season, damn did it end this show on a very high, satisfactory, conclusive note. And that is why the final verdict for this final episode of the original Castlevania series is a 10 out of 10. Yep, same score as the last episode, because both work together as one incredible hour-long finale. Alright, now for my thoughts of the final season, Season 4, overall. It's definitely a mixed bag. Like, those saying it was like 10 out of 10, or like the greatest thing about Castlevania. Again, I gotta ask, what pot are you smoking? With a lot of tedious, clunky, exposition-driven monotony, and more than a few baffling decisions. But it still has some great moments, and it ended on a high note, so it made it worth slogging through all the bad crap to get to the Flash's brilliance. It's way better than the disastrous Season 3, but nowhere near the masterpiece that so many claim. And that is why my final verdict for Season 4 overall is going to be a 6 out of 10. It's a decent final season to the show that ends on a really high note, but still has a lot of the baggage and the bullshit from Season 3. And if you're wondering how all the seasons stack up together, it looks like this. With Season 2 at the top and Season 3 at the bottom. In my opinion, Season 2 was peak Castlevania. Like, that was the most fun that I had reviewing this entire show, was covering Season 2. Alright, now that we have finally reviewed every single episode of the entire Castlevania anime series, it's time for the overall final review. My overall final thoughts when putting everything together into one big final project. Here's my final review for the original Castlevania. Despite its issues, I'd still say that I overall enjoyed Castlevania. The animation is great, the voice acting is top-notch, the characters are mostly really likable. I love Trevor, I love Sypha, I love Alucard, I freaking adore Isaac and Hector, and heck, even Dracula is really good in this show. The gore is phenomenal. The first 2 seasons are a genuine blast to watch. Like, those two, I would just like to rewatch those 2 and then pretend the rest doesn't exist. And the story it told was admirably ambitious. Not to mention its very strong ending that wrapped things up very nicely. But it had a serious consistency issue, with terrible writing, an over-reliance on clunky exposition so bad that it would make Attack on Titan cringe, painfully slow pacing, and so many baffling decisions that, while sounding good on paper, flopped in execution, especially all the infinite corridor bullshit. Add in the horrible trash fire of the entire 3rd season, boring side villains, like Carmilla and Germaine that add almost nothing, like you could pretty much cut them out and miss nothing, repetitive story beats, adult themes, and gratuitous nudity that came off as exploitative rather than being used artistically, very loose, borderline non-existent accuracy to the games, something that carries over into Devil May Cry, and Season 4's constant struggle to even get the ball rolling. You have a series that has pretty much zero rewatchability as a whole, which, considering it's an anime, and I'm like a massive anime nerd, that's pretty damning in of itself. Like, I'll rewatch the first 2 seasons, and I'll rewatch the last 2 episodes, but outside of that, I'm not touching Season 3 or 4 again. It was a massive clusterfuck. Yes, this ending is great, but I'd be singing its praises much more highly had it just ended after Season 2. If it ended after Season 2, this would be like a 9 or a 10 or hell, even an 11, because of Season 2 being peak Castlevania, and delivered a truly outstanding finale in its own right, as it ended with Dracula's symbolic defeat, much like the games do. Afterwards, the creators just constantly struggled to carry the series onward, leading to two far inferior latter seasons following that conclusive event. Especially Season 3, which I'd argue is one of the absolute worst seasons in all of animation, as it metaphorically, and quite literally, dove off of a fucking cliff. In conclusion, if you're a huge fan of the franchise, can handle very intense gore, or just looking for a flawed but fun horror-adjacent series to binge for spooky season, definitely give this show a shot. Sure, it's not an all-time greatest of the anime genre, this is no DBZ, this is no MHA, this is no Cowboy Bebop, but it's still a worthwhile, very strange ride that, unlike any other series out there, gives you something very unique. Sure, I thought the latter two seasons were mostly an underwhelming, very horribly written mess, but maybe it'll work out better for you. Swing on in and give it a go. It's a really good series as a whole, and I'm genuinely glad if you end up enjoying it more than me, especially those final two seasons. Like, if you enjoyed those final two seasons, I'm not gonna hate on you for it. It just means that we have different opinions, and that's just how it is sometimes with media. There are some things I like that people hate, and there are some things that I hate that people love. So, that's just how it is. So, I respect your opinion, and if you can enjoy this show overall more than me, I'm very happy for you. I was just really expecting more after hearing this show's praise out the ass for the past 3-4 years, because almost everything I've seen about this show has been praise non-stop from every single corner of the internet. But after finally watching it all the way through, like, aside from a couple scattered episodes in Season 4 and the entirety of the first two seasons, the rest of the show just constantly struggled to really have any kind of consistency. So, yeah, make of that what you will. So, overall, my final verdict for the original Castlevania series from 2017 is a strong, very solid, but not great because of the latter two seasons being extremely underwhelming. It's a 7 out of 10. My final overall verdict is a 7 out of 10 for the original Castlevania. It is still a really good show. I'm not going to call it bad, even if the final two seasons were full of a ton of bullshit. Because those first two seasons were so strong, not to mention the ending was also so strong, I'm able to mostly forgive some of its other crap. Like, yeah, this is not a great show. It is far from one of the best anime I've ever seen, but I had a decent enough time with it, and I still don't regret watching it. Even if sometimes it really tested my fucking patience. And that's it. Now that we are almost 15 minutes into this review, we're done. We are officially done with Castlevania, the original series. After 2 years, we are finally done with it. Thank you guys so much for watching all these reviews. Thank you so much for watching all these videos. I hope you've had a great time reviewing this. Well, watching me give my thoughts on every single episode of this show. And all I can say is thank you, Netflix, for giving us a video game adaptation that is not shit. You deserve props for that, because it's a lot easier said than done a grand majority of the time. So, but we're not quite done with Castlevania yet, because we still have another show. Yeah, we're just going straight into it. I want to finish this off this year, and I'm not backing out this time, no matter how good or bad it turns out to be. So, we're going to move on from one Belmont to another, as tomorrow we begin our coverage of the Castlevania sequel series, Castlevania Nocturne. Until then, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.